Hi, Dr. David Klippinger, Director of Still Mountain Tai Chi and Qigong of Pittsburgh here. One of the things that comes up a lot for people is the issue of balance. How do we create balance between our social lives, our family lives, and our work lives? And oftentimes we feel like we are torn in multiple directions. Huang Di, known as the Yellow Emperor, discussed this over 4,600 years ago. And apparently the discussion was so tremendously influential that this gave him the title of the civilizer of the earth. Now, in his Yellow Emperor's Guide to Internal Medicine, he introduces a number of very important concepts that play out in Tai Chi, Qigong, medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, meditation, etc. And these are the ideas of yin and yang, the 5 elements, and the issue of qi. But one might say, he wrote this over 4,600 years ago, and how can this still be relevant today? So one of the things when we look at what he's saying, and I believe they are very relevant arguments, has to do with our relationship to the cycles of the world. In other words, there is a particular cycle of seasons. There's a cycle of weeks. There's a cycle of days. There's a cycle of 24 hours. And when we're paying attention to that cycle, or aware of that cycle, we can act accordingly. And these cycles play out in a number of very important health ways and spiritual ways. One of the obvious ones is the issue of diet. So in the Yellow Emperor's Guide, the saying was that we should eat in accord with the seasons. In other words, the food that would be naturally available for us in the season is what we should eat. The other thing is that we should eat the rainbow. In other words, our diet should consist of a number of different colored items. So this would allow for there to be greater health, and we would say nutrients as well. Now, this also plays into the notion of activity, because when we look at the season of the year, especially from an agrarian perspective, we're very aware of the season of planting and fertilizing, harvesting, and resting. And so this plays into how we as human beings should also be in the world, paying attention to what would be a natural cycle of activity and rest. And this idea of rest ends up being very important as well. For the notion of balance, that we want to have this sense of listening to our bodies, knowing when we should rest and when we should press forward. It is also important to have a life that does not resist this natural flow. Because in that resistance, we create these pockets of stress and difficulty. One might think of it being like a swimmer, that when we're swimming in the water, say in the ocean, that we flow with the current. We flow with what's going on. Now, sometimes we need to steer because we don't want the current to take us way out to sea or way away from where our towel is on the beach. So it's not with apathy that we move with the currents. It is a dynamic engagement that allows us to make changes. And in those changes, we can move towards discovering harmony and balance. And this is exactly the notion behind the moving meditation idea of Tai Chi and Qigong as well, because we learn how to move spatially. We learn how to move in accord with what is around us. And this is teaching us how to be more in balance with what's going on. It also teaches us how to have this presence of mind and heart to be able to best respond. So if we want to have a sense of balance, it's important to come back to these ideas of moving naturally and in accord and seeing things for what they are. And one of the things is to make changes as need be. If you're interested in learning more about how Tai Chi and Qigong can create that life of balance, please visit www.stillmountaintaichi.com for my online and in-person classes, and I'm also happy to answer questions. So take care. I hope you find a life of balance as well.